my next guest says that it should be one of the issues that African Americans pay attention to very closely in 2020. In a new piece in USA Today, Reverend C.L. Bryant says, quote, about 1 million new job openings have been filled by Black Americans since President Trump took office in 2017. The Black poverty rate reached its lowest level on record. He says Democrats won't acknowledge those numbers because they would rather, quote, reopen the wounds of yesterday than promote policies that strengthen the Black community of tomorrow. Reverend C.L. Bryant is here now. He is a senior fellow at Freedom Works, and he's joined by Kwame Jackson, Newsweek Global contributor and leadership development strategist. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good to have both of you with us today. We also note here that 10 years ago, Black employment was almost 16% in the United States. Now that number is 5.9%. So, Kwame, let me start with you. I mean, if that, as the Reverend says, if that's not progress, it's kind of hard to imagine what is.
Well, that number has to be looked at with skeptical eyes. And what I mean by that is you have to kick the tires. You have to look under the hood of that number. That number is a very superficial number. Basically, when Obama left office, he gave Trump a Black unemployment rate of 7.8%, not the full 16% from the height of the recession. So Trump has made progress, and that's no doubt. But we're talking about when you look under the hood and you examine that number and you look at real wage growth, the ability for people to put groceries on the table, the ability for people to afford health care, the ability for people to actually take care of their kids in after-school programs and daycare. Those things are still more expensive to the average person. So the gains have not been redistributed to working income folks. They have been redistributed to the top 1% and the really elites in America. So that number is a little bit of a fallacy when you think people are going to make a decision just on that number.
Reverend Bryant have at that. Go ahead, Reverend.
The thing about the progressive liberals and the Democrat Party today, as opposed to in 1975 when Joe Biden was very much a Republican, is that they want to continue to carry on the skepticisms and avoid the realities of the progress that has occurred in this nation. Martha, we're not living in 1975, and anybody with any common sense would be able to see just how far our nation has evolved as a people. But yet the Democrats do, in fact, want to keep those wounds reopened so that the boogeyman that they have had Black people afraid of for so many years can still remain real to them and, of course, still drive the vote to the polls as they have done for nearly 60 years. It's time for Black people to at least try something different. This president has been a visionary.
Go ahead.
And he has been very reactionary in his administration.
Kwame, I remember the president talking to all voters and saying to African-American voters in particular, what have you got to lose? You give it a try. The whole difference is that when you have an economic policy that involves removing regulations and cutting taxes, that stokes the fires of new business development, and it does help to raise wages and all of that. And we've seen clearly that more jobs are provided and that does lift all boats. There are certainly people who are, would still like to have them lifted more. But, the economic outlook looks like it will do that. So, it's a different approach than President Obama, who said, that he wanted to expand the food stamp program, wanted to expand ways for people to be helped out by the government.
Yeah, for me, it's not about saying that there's not been any economic or social progress in America. That's a fallacy. I think for me, what you have to do is say that the race is not over. We're still running the race. It's not like we've come to some conclusion that racism is no longer a factor in America, that there are no kind of systemic things that have continued to hold African Americans back, whether it be things like the access to the GI Bill and the fact that African Americans weren't able to build the same amount of wealth in their homes and their estates as the average white family. So we have to look at the legacy of slavery, of Jim Crow, and how that's accrued and really multiplied over time, both negatively for African Americans and to the positive addition for white Americans.
All right. So, Reverend Bryant, Kwame, as you just heard, is saying, look, we've made progress, but we haven't gotten far enough, and we can't forget that. And you say that they're ripping off old wounds. Is there truth to both of those things?
Absolutely. There could be, but not in present-day America, and I'll tell you why. Because there is not one thing in present-day America, as I, as a Black man, could imagine doing, that the color of my skin would stop me from doing. I grew up in the late 60s and the early 60s. I remember drinking from colored water fountains and riding on the back of buses. And when I tell you about evolution, I'm not telling you about something that I've heard of. I'm telling you about something I have seen and experienced with my own eyes. America is a place where everyone understands that freedom does work, and it can work for you if you will allow big government to get out of the way of the black people, get out of the way of the American people, and allow them to enjoy the fruits of American labor and the fruits of American abundance that everyone else has enjoyed. Don't need a handout, just need big government and those who would stop us from progressing to move out of our way.
Gentlemen.
And Joe Biden is one of those people who would definitely stand in the way.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Reverend C.L. Bryant and Kwame Jackson, good to have both of you with us on this Memorial Day.